sometimes when you're painting, your brushes are gonna, like I'm doing now, they're gonna start drying out, right? So what I do is I take a paper towel and I get it wet. I usually do this in the sink, but just so I can show you on the camera, I put a little bit of water in the towel and then I tap and pat it around like this so that I've got a wet towel, and I put my brush inside of that and I fold it over. This is going to keep my brush a little bit wet while I'm working. So when you switch colors and go to your next brush, you want to keep your brushes wet. You also can take this wet paper towel and you can drape it over your palette so that if you've got a glob of paint right here, if you go back into here, you will be able to reconstitute this paint even if it dries, but it's going to be much more chalky and it's going to be a whole different consistency than the paint you're using right now. So you may want to take a paper towel, wet it in the sink, and then actually lay it over your palette and then lift it when you want to get more paint to work like that, or just cover the two, the things that you haven't done. Of course, you're going to get these cups, so you're going to be able to throw lids onto things, which is going to be a really good idea for you, right? So maybe mixing onto this palette is not my best case scenario. I'm gonna experiment with these cups now. I've got them, and that's going to make it easier for me to cover things. But that's a really good idea. The other thing that I always do is I have some saran wrap in my studio, and I thought I brought some in, but it's probably still in the kitchen. You can wrap saran wrap around a brush, or you can throw saran wrap over your palette, and that will keep things fresh too. Okay, so if you're painting in the morning with us in class, you want to wrap your palette in saran wrap, have some saran wrap with you in your studio so you can wrap that up and everything will stay moist and wet and you're not wasting paint and using more paint that way. It's now time to do a demonstration on cleaning paint and cleaning brushes. All right, I don't take, they probably, taught you in kindergarten to put your brush down in and swirl it around and get all the paint out, right? I don't do that because I want to wash as little paint as possible down the drain. It's really important to me not to kill the frogs, right? So I'm going to take a paper towel and I'm going to wipe out as much paint into the paper towel as I can. That's step one. Squeeze it, pinch it on either side of the paper towel, roll it a little bit if it's a round brush, but you can get like 85% of the paint out of there just by doing this. Look how much cleaner that brush is and look how much paint I got out of there. I'm not washing any of this down the drain, right? That's really good for the environment to get this stuff. Now, this paper towel, I'm gonna drop into an open container. So I'm not gonna put it in a trash bag and then tie that trash bag up and send it to the landfill, because then the paint will still be wet when it gets to the landfill, right? So I'm gonna put it in an open trash can. I'm gonna leave it overnight so the paint all gets nice and dry. Then I can tie it up and throw it out, okay? So I'm gonna clean as much paint out of there as I can. Then I'm gonna dip it into my cup that has that color in it. I'm still not washing it in the cup. I'm just dipping it to get it wet. And look how much more color I'm getting out of there into that paper towel. So I wipe it on a paper towel, I dip it in the water and I wipe it again. And I do that to get out as much as I can out of that brush. And this brush is already like 90–95% clean just by dipping and wiping in this towel. The towel is really wet. It's taken a lot of water. So yeah, it's going to need to sit overnight to dry. I'm also cleaning with my paper towel the ferrule. So this metal thing at the end is called the ferrule. And I'm wiping the scum off of that while it's still wet. I might take my fingernail and actually scratch some of that off so I don't end up with a whole lot of, I mean, there's nothing like a new brush, right? So, okay, I'm ready to go to the sink. I'm gonna take my dirty paint cup and my dirty brushes and my dirty towels. Here in the bathroom, again, these paper towels, I want them to go into an open trash bin until they dry. I'm just gonna leave them out till they dry. The cup of water that I have, I'm gonna actually pour that into a paper towel, or I'm gonna wipe out, because I only have a few teaspoons or tablespoons in there. I'm gonna take my paper towel and I'm gonna wipe that out too. So I'm wiping this cup out with the paper towel, so I'm not washing any stuff down the drain. And I also can reuse this because this is a plastic product. I can just turn this over here on the counter and let that dry till tomorrow as well. And I'll just reuse these cups, okay? these brushes, because I've wiped them and wet them and wiped them again, I can now turn on the water here and I can start to rinse them out in here. If I'm getting a lot of blue like that, I might come back up here again and see how I can get more blue into that paper towel. All right, now I'm ready to run it under the water. I put my hand underneath it like this and I sort of make a pool so that I'm washing into a pool like that. And then I get some soap. I use dish soap. You can also use shampoo for this. And I put a little bit in my hand and then I wash this around like that. See how that's getting a lot of blue out of it there? Mm-hmm. I want to wash up into the ferrule. So I'm pushing the brush back and forth like this and I'm pinching it again and I'm kind of rolling it between my fingers to make sure that it gets all up in there. If it gets dry or you can't get it out of there, sometimes I'll take a little fingernail brush and I'll actually put it down and I'll scrub it like this. If your paint should get dry in there at all, then a fingernail brush is a good idea to get it out. Yes. Once I've got it all saturated in soap, then I make another pool and I rinse it all out. Sometimes I'll do that twice, but I feel like this brush is really clean, so I don't have a problem. I can come over here and tap on the paper towel, and I don't see any blue there. It's clean enough for me. I want to reshape it before I put it away. So I'm going to make sure that the brush looks like it did when I bought it. I'm sort of taking my fingers like this, and I'm reshaping the brush like that so that it looks like it did when I bought it. If I don't clean it up into the ferrule, it'll do something like this. Sometimes it'll like, you know how your chiropractor tells you bad posture starts at your feet? Bad posture in a brush starts down here at the ferrule. So if you let paint get down in here and you don't clean it out of this little metal part, then it's going to start spreading like this, and this paint is then, this brush is then going to be good for a stripy kind of effect or for stamping and stippling, but it's not going to lay a nice smooth mark like it did before. Okay, so I'm going to put it like that. I'm either going to lay it flat somewhere so it can dry, or I'm going to put it up like you see over here. I have a bucket of brushes so that I can put it with the brush paint facing up. If you're working and you want to put your brush into a cup of water for a minute or two, that's okay. But you can see how if this brush sits at the bottom of this, it's going to bend the brush. If you leave it in that way overnight or for an hour or more, even a half hour sometimes, what'll happen is your brush will get bent off like this permanently and it just won't function the way you want it to. So shape it nicely, put it upside up, put it brush side up into a cup. I don't need to run that much water, that's quite a waste. Please think about, you know, fishes and frogs and birds and bees when you're doing your artwork. We have considered that when we bought the things. So they are environmentally sound. These gouaches, I think, are made with honey, and they're all the teachers that did the research on this are did a really good job in finding environmentally correct products. But I also want to make sure that I put as little stuff down the sink. Your mom will also thank you, you know, when you go to wash your hands, or your plumber will thank you next time you go to do the dishes. Sometimes I shake them out like this, or I take a paper towel and I shape it. But I just want to make sure that this guy looks as nice as I can get it. Looks like I've got a little bit of a split in there already. Something happened where those got wadded up. So I'm going to run the water, this time a little hard over there to kind of straighten them out. Probably when I tapped it, it made them go kind of wonky there. I'm not happy with that. So I'm going to take my nail brush, I'm going to iron it a little bit. This fingernail brush is also a really great tool for cleaning your hands and your fingernails, right? If you don't have a nail brush and you get this paint all over your fingers and stuff, a scrubbing sponge works really well. So you can just take like a pot and pan scrubber, and that'll help you clean up. Gouache is really easy to clean up. This is compared to most paints, acrylics and oils. Gouache is really friendly. So even a paper towel, see how I have this paint here? If I take a paper towel and I put a little bit of soap in it, it'll work just like a nail brush, and it should take that out. See how it just took that and cleaned my hand right up? All of these paper towels I'm going to put in an open trash can so that they get dry before they go to the dumpster. If you take care of your brushes like that, they're going to last you for years. Some of these brushes I've had since I was in art school with my undergrad, you know? And I think, though, that there's nothing like a new brush. You know, some of these brushes, like I say, that I've used for a long, long time. See how this one has all the paint down here in the ferrule? There's a point where you just really can't resurrect it. That doesn't mean this brush isn't useful. I can still use this brush, you know. It's just not going to make the clean kind of edge, and it's not going to flow and be that kind of a like a sable brush, they say, is the highest end of brush or whatever, you know, like that sort of finesse of the brush touching the paper and the bounce of the canvas against the brush and all that kind of thing that people talk about.